We'll be there live, broadcasting from an Applebee's Sunday morning fantasy football pregame. Come dressed as me, or come dressed as Lawrence, honestly.
Somebody did come dressed as you last year.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the real Matthew Berry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, he ate for free.
He did eat for free.
Yeah, it's a
Now,
good move
if you
by
come
him.
dressed as any one of us, you come dressed as Jay Croucher. Yeah, 1,000%.
You eat for free.
You eat for free.
And you'll probably appear on the show if you
honestly,
want to.
what do you think of Jay Croucher costume? Is it just like a
Well,
New
now we
York-
nailed it.
Well, I know. It's like
It's a downtown Fide uniform.
yeah, exactly.
The
That's true.
pressed new button down, the slacks.
Yeah, or is it just like is
Liberty
it like New
hoodie?
York Liberty
New York
jersey, New York Liberty jersey, and like a
Right now is a good time to wear it,
and just
Right.
multiple betting apps that you're just
That's
juggling.
true.
Yeah.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. It's Love Hate Day. Yep, that's right. If you dress like us, you drink for free.
That's right.
Did you enjoy your day off as much as we enjoyed it?
What the hell was that? What am I looking at? Is that me on Sabrina Ryan?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a mashup.
Exactly
That's what we like to
right.
call it.
Terrifying
Right. What I'm
stuff.
saying is, if you wanted to come to the Applebee's in Pittsburgh on Sunday, you could be dressed like in a like a New York Liberty jersey, and like holding like a young daughter, like in a DraftKings sweatshirt or something like that. That's like
That's my brand?
Yeah, that's your brand.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just you've got your daughters, or you're holding a daughter, and you're betting in the other hand or something like that.
That's my life.
Yeah,
that's my life. Children and betting apps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Minus 900 to advance to the next round, Matthew.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll get to Love Hate in a moment.
But we hope to see everyone in Pittsburgh.
Yes, a reminder, the boys are heading to Pittsburgh on Sunday. For those in the area, we're broadcasting live from the Applebee's at 6570 Steubenville Pike. Doors open at 10:30 a.m. and the show kicks off at 11. Join us. We'll answer your sit-start questions and break down the biggest storylines of Week 5. And if you're not in Pittsburgh, you can watch the show live on Peacock and, of course, at youtube.com/NFL on NBC.
Jay will buy you stuff. Jay will give you his free bets. Jay will give you his number. Jay, honestly, we should talk with your wife about this before I go, but just we're throwing it out there. There's a chance if you come to the show in Pittsburgh, we may give you one of Jay's kids. He's got 3.
I do have 3.
I mean, like,
I have children to
you've
spare.
got a backup kid.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Children to spare.
Exactly.
You can always make more of them as well. That's the beauty.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
Who do you think is it Remy? Who goes?
It'd be Remy. Yeah,
Remy,
yeah, the
yeah.
middle one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The oldest one's the most self-sufficient. The youngest one's the cutest.
Yeah.
So Remy's
Sorry,
out.
Remy.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Hopefully you don't
It's a-
watch this back when you're 14 years old.
Exactly. Definitely no therapy going on there.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, Remy's in Pittsburgh.
My dad tried to give me away at an Applebee's fantasy football happy hour.
Got wearing a TJ Watt jersey.
Right. I came in for the riblets. I left with a.
I left in a terrible towel.
Yeah, exactly. I left with like a 4-year-old. All right.
Okay, with that, let's get to Love Hate, and we're going to start with the running backs. Of course, Jordan Mason makes the love list, and we got to hear from Cardinals defensive coordinator Nick Rawlis on what makes Jordan Mason so dangerous in this 49ers offense.
Yeah, I mean, he knows how to run the different type of runs they have, the wide zone. Very good at finding those, just reading it down the line, finding those cuts, and then when he does find that seam, he is a load to bring down. He gets downhill. So, he's doing a great job right now of hitting his tracks in the run game, and when he finds that cut, he's making it, and then he runs hard and he runs downhill, and he's a big man. So you got to do a good job of tackling and mitigating those hitting yardages because, right now he's breaking through tackles and doing a really good job.
By the way, I also am a load to bring down, just in a very different way than Jordan Mason. I've never seen the defense coordinator. Yeah, write that down. I have never, honestly, I thought that joke would land better, to be perfectly honest with you guys.
Right.
That's fine, whatever. Screw
Still
you guys.
warming up.
It's you know what?
First
Whatever.
segment.
You know what? The people at the Pittsburgh Applebee's, that's the kind of joke they will appreciate. Screw you guys.
I would bring
I'm
the
coming to
laugh
my people in
soundboard
Pittsburgh.
production.
I'm coming to my people in Pittsburgh. I've never seen the defense coordinator of the Cardinals.
Like
He's a young guy.
Doppelganger of Joe Brady, the Bills
Yeah.
offensive coordinator. That's what it felt like.
Yeah,
Defensive version.
Young, good-looking guy too. No,
No, it's not good looking.
Who's that?
His run defense right now.
Dude.
They've allowed the third most rushing yards to running backs in the NFL.
He's too busy in the
You like
mirror
that?
looking how handsome
That's
he is.
how you
That's
land
why-
one.
Connor's the best.
Very nice.
Needs Jose Quintana tonight to have that type of accuracy.
That's all I'm thinking about while doing this show, to be
Yeah,
honest with
let's
you.
call the Today Show. You should replace Hoda. Anyway,
interesting
until we get
move.
there, Jordan Mason, look, love hate is all about expectations, obviously. Like, everyone's already starting Jordan Mason, but I'm at running back 3 this week. Is why he makes the love list. Massive work share. He's had at least 21 touches in every game so far this year. He's averaging over 24 a game. You mentioned the Cardinals' run defense. They've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards to running backs. No team has given up more rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs than the Arizona Cardinals. They're tied for the most. And 3 different running backs have already scored at least 20 fantasy points against the Arizona Cardinals. We saw both Brian Robinson and Jeremy McNichols, of my beloved Commanders, run all over them last week as well. So, yeah, Jordan Mason in for a big workload and a big fantasy day. He makes the love list at running back 3, Jay.
Incredible. What a time to be alive.
Yes.
Jordan Mason, running back 3. 3 weeks in a row, he's had the highest rushing yards prop on DraftKings, so that shows you where he's at. But I think the key is that he started to get work in the receiving game last week, where he had the 2 catches. The most important catch was the one that got called back. He had a 38-yard touchdown. The call back on a George Kittle hold that wasn't a hold. And so that just shows that they are getting him involved in that way. And so he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey, but every catch that he gets him closer to being that facsimile. So, yeah, while McCaffrey's out, like, he's the top 5 running back rest of the way.
He's a grape slapper.
He is a grape slapper.
Oh, yes.
Yes, he is.
I didn't like that touchdown getting called back.
No,
Could have really screwed me, actually, in the end.
It did. I mean, whatever. You ended up winning by 14 points. I have to check. Have we gotten a stat correction
No, I
yet?
don't
Have
think
any of the
so.
stat corrections
No.
come in yet? It's Thursday morning. Usually they should have been in by now.
It's not looking good.
I'm going to look at that during the commercial break.
Kenneth Walker also makes the love list here, Jay. The Giants are allowing over 5 yards per carry to running backs right now. Walker went nuclear the other night.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker has quietly been on like a per play basis one of the 5 best running backs in football. He's been a monster. Now, they want to throw the ball, and they are throwing the ball at an extremely high rate. They have the #1 pass rate over expected in the NFL, the Seahawks. But at the same time, this is a game where they're almost touchdown favorites against the Giants. I don't think they want Geno to be dropping back 45 times a game. I think they would like to run the ball. And Ken Walker, like, the thing with him is it's always been, if he just is out there and stays on the field, he's a top 7, top 10 fantasy running back. It's just a matter of being healthy, and he's healthy at the moment.
Yeah, to your point about the workload, he's played 2 games this year, and in those 2 games, he's gotten 80% of the Seahawks' red zone rushes. He's gotten 100% of their goal-to-go rushes as well. And the Giants, who give up a lot of big plays. That's one of the calling cards of Ken Walker, is just he's got this big playability, right? Well, the Giants allow 5.1 yards per carry to running backs, and they've given up the 3rd most rushes of 10 or more yards. So they give up these big running plays, and, again, Walker just has that kind of home run hitting ability as well. So obviously, again, monster game last week. He did everything he could to bring me back against the Grape Slappers. Didn't get me there ultimately, but I have him at running back 6. Again, significantly higher than where he was drafted. Like, he's a mid-tier RB1.
Also,
who could easily finish as the #1 running back in fantasy this week. That's within the range of outcomes.
As I found out the hard way as well, they were lining him up as wideouts on certain plays. So he's being used in a lot of different, more creative ways than I think he was being used on the Shane Waldron.
With Andy Dalton taking over at quarterback for the Panthers, they've become a professional offense, and that's helped Chuba Hubbard. He's always getting the volume in the run game, Matthew, but he's getting a lot of looks in the pass game now as well.
He really is, right? 3 straight games now with a double-digit target share. He's had at least 4 receptions in each of those games, 20 or more touches, 120 scrimmage yards in both games that Andy Dalton has started. The Red Rifle has made the Chuba Rocket go.
Sure.
No, I was trying to think the Hubba, I was trying to give me something here.
Chubba
like
Bubba?
The Chubba Bubba go, and
Chubba Hubba.
I'll come up with something.
He's only been in the league for like 4 years.
No, but I was going off the Red Rifle. Is there another sort of thing that starts with a C or an H, like the Hubbard, hand grenade? He makes the Hubbard hand grenade go off.
Telescope? Is that a?
Yeah, the Hubble telescope is a thing. Either way, we're going to work through this. We're going to workshop it. We'll bring it back to you. Maybe we'll debut it in Pittsburgh. But either way, it's a nice matchup against the Bears. For all their defensive prowess, they have allowed at least 18 fantasy points or more to a running back in 3 of 4 games so far this season. And Hubbard, who is getting a lot of the workload, he's involved in the passing game. He's a true 3-down back. This is a competent offense under Andy Dalton, who's obviously familiar with the Bears. Remember, former QB1. Andy Dalton. He saw some of these guys in practice back in the day. And The other thing is like, I'm just going to, while we're just talking about Carolina Panthers, my love-hate column, which will come up a little bit later today, it's probably out by the time you're seeing this, was an AMA today, Ask Matthew Anything. And one of the questions came up was Nick Chubb or Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks, they very quietly, they announced that they're not ready to clear him for practice yet, that the Panthers did. So I don't know when we're going to see Jonathan Brooks. And you think about what the Panthers franchise is right now, like there's no reason to rush Jonathan Brooks back because Chuba Hubbard has played so well. And that's a team, like the question was actually who's a better stash, Nick Chubb or Chuba Hubbard? And I think it's Nick Chubb, and I don't think it's particularly close. Nick Chubb's already practicing. We know Nick Chubb is good in the NFL. We've seen him be one of the best in the NFL. We haven't seen Jonathan Brooks take an NFL snap. We think he's going to be good, but we don't know when that's going to be.
You learn a lot about IR windows this time of year because guys that start out in the IR, their practice window can open after 4 weeks. So if a guy opens, it usually means he's been healthy and now he's just eligible. If a guy's not practicing, that's a red flag to me. So it's not that I'm out on Jonathan Brooks this year. It's just it's a frustrating stash at this point if he's not even back on the field.
Yeah, and the thing with Chubb is that he has to be activated within the next 21 days. I would guess it's just the guessing game. I think he's not going to play this week, I wouldn't think. Next week we'll see. I think he'll be back by the Cincinnati game in week 7. But yeah, Chuba Hubbard, by the way, his rushing prop set 8 yards higher than Breece Hall this week, which shows you where Breece Hall is at.
Wow.
crazy.
Shots fired at Connor and his Jets.
Tough times. Others receiving votes. Kareem Hunt comes in as RB23. Kareem Hunt off the couch and into the top 25 running backs.
Speaking of guys eligible to be activated, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is eligible to be activated this week. We will see if he does. It is the Monday night game against the Saints, so this one's a little bit dicey, but I do feel like the expectation is that if CEH is activated, it won't be that big of a role to begin with. I do think we have at least definitely one more week with Kareem Hunt as the lead running back of the Chiefs. He had 67% of KC's running back touches last week, including 2 of their 3 red zone touches. Saints, by the way, give up the 3rd highest yards per carry to opposing running backs. They're giving up 5.2 yards a clip. So Kareem Hunt, I think, is a high-end flex this week. You see Roschon Johnson there. Look, very quietly, 19 touches over the past 2 weeks. He saw the team's only goal line rush last week. Yes, DeAndre Swift went nuclear last week, but Roschon Johnson has carved out a role for him in this Bears offense, and it's a nice matchup against Carolina as the Panthers allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. And Antonio Pierce, by the way, said on Monday that Mattison has earned more work and that he's, quote, going to get it. Zamir White has not been great. It's one of the reasons why Zamir White was on the preseason hate list as well. And so Pierce all but came out and said, like, yeah, I know how you know how you guys hate Zamir White? So do I. He didn't say that, but in his eyes, it felt like that's what he was saying in his eyes.
Well, he did like an Instagram post suggesting a trade for Devontae Adams. So Antonio Pierce might have felt that way at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. It's unbelievable the Raiders are 2-2. Feels like they're 0-7. I know we've only played 4 games. It feels like they're 0-7. It just seems like a disaster season, but they're 2-2. And look, I think they're confident enough that they can stay in games enough for Alexander Mattison to be somewhat viable. Obviously, you've got him at RB37, so you're not wanting to start him, but in a deeper league as a flex.
I mean, when I saw I went to look and see if he was available in the League of Assholes. He is not.
No one ever is.
No.
Ever.
No one
Literally,
ever is.
I go through this 7 times a day. Oh, maybe I'll get this player that no one cares about. Gone.
No, the other day there was a Mike Reese was floating that, hey, Antonio Gibson might get more work than Ramondre Stevenson. I'm like, well, no one has Antonio Gibson in our league. No, he's rostered. He's,
the best player unavailable is like Devon Vele.
Yeah, who was not active last week, by the way. Just make that clear.
Awful. And by the way, I just got an alert. Big Show just picked him up. So anyway, it's all a disaster. Antonio Pierce honestly should be Coach of the Year candidate. But the fact that somehow he's gotten this team to got 2 wins.
Yeah, season's not over. They got talent still. I don't think they're going to do anything though.
No, they're probably not.
Might be over.
Real quickly though, just as we're talking about the Raiders and Devontae Adams, I did pick up, not in our league, not a League of Assholes, but in another competitive 12-team league that we do our waivers on Wednesday night. I woke up this morning and I got Jakobi Meyers. And I'm in first place in that league. And I looked at that league's on ESPN, and he's available in about 35% of ESPN leagues. And the reason I was just like, I don't like him this week because we know Devontae Adams isn't going to play, and so Jakobi Meyers is likely going to get Pat Surtain. But Devontae Adams looks like he's going to be traded, and Meyers will be the number 1 wide receiver. I think he's a good grab and stash if he's still available in your league. Like I said, it's out there in about 30% of ESPN leagues.
Trey Tucker as well in deep
leagues.
That's a great ad.
Trey Tucker.
Also, hasn't been
mainstream
available in our
media
league.
doesn't want you to know about Trey Tucker. What?
Yeah, hasn't been available in our league for 3 weeks.
No, of course not. No. 1,000%. No one's available in our league. That's why it's the League of Assholes.
It really is. It lives up to its name. The hate list for running backs, James Conner. on the list this week. He's RB20
Yeah.
for Matthew. The Cardinals are the biggest underdogs in Week 5. They are 7.5-point dogs, Matthew.
Right, and the problem with James Conner is that what you're really needing here is a touchdown. Right? Like, again, with 4 teams on a bye, you probably can't afford to sit him, but love-hate is all about expectations, and I have lowered mine for James Conner this week. He's not involved in the passing game. 3 straight games now with a target share below 5%. So he's become kind of a first and second down guy. And every starting running back to face the Niners this year has averaged below 4 yards per carry. To your point, if they're a touchdown underdog, they're probably going to have to be throwing. They're not involving Conner in the passing game here. So what you're really hoping for, that he falls into the end zone, which, by the way, given that he's James Conner, very real chance that he is. But he's down at running back 20 for me, lower than I normally have him, given his workload and talent.
Zack Moss also on the hate list here, Jay. Baltimore has the number 1 ranked rush defense. We've talked a lot about that this week, and we're starting to see a little bit more Chase Brown in this offense, too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that rush defense, that's the key thing. They have, in terms of success rate, Baltimore have the best rush defense in the NFL. It's not even close. 28% of opposing team rushes are successful. The gap between Baltimore and the second best team, which is the Chargers, is bigger than the gap between second and 10th. So this Baltimore team last year, like, no one really was able to run them because they were just winning every game by multiple touchdowns. This year they've been in closer games for the most part, but still teams have not been able to run effectively. Now some of that is they played the Raiders, which is, the Zamir White, Alexander Mattison show. But they also played the Bills, who had been running over everyone. They played the Chiefs in week 1 as well. So I think that the Ravens, this rush defense is real, and the Bengals, they're underdogs.
Spectacular.
It is real and magnificent. Yeah, spectacular.
Sure.
I think that the Bengals are going to have to be throwing. It's almost 3-point dogs in this one too.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, again, I said not to panic on Zack Moss because while Chase Brown got the 2 of the 3 goal line rushes last game, Moss did see 100% of the goal line rushes in weeks 1 through 3. Having said that, the fact that Chase Brown had such a good game, you have to lower your expectations for Zack Moss at least somewhat. Just 50% of the team's running back rushes in week 4 as Chase Brown continues his emergence. This is a true split committee, so you're getting half the work against, as you pointed out, Jay, the number 1 ranked rush defense in the NFL that's allowing just 2.7 yards per carry to opposing running backs. He's my running back 25 this week.
Another guy here, Rachaad White. We've talked a lot about this backfield. Bucky Irving is slowly not taking over, but factoring in. So now the touches are going down, Matthew, for Rachaad White. 3 straight games with 12 or fewer touches for a guy that is just not efficient with his touches anyway.
Yeah, by the way, and it's not a good matchup against Atlanta tonight. Top 10 in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. Always dicey putting somebody in love or hate when they're playing in the Thursday night game. Because what happens is like, I say, like Rachaad White's on the hate list, and then watch him score 2 touchdowns tonight, and then tomorrow is nothing but my mentions blowing up. Like, great call, Barry. But I do think that Rachaad White is a dicey play. Again, I have it running back 26, so I have a mid-tier flex in a week where you've got 4 teams on a bye. But over those 3 games that you mentioned, where he's gotten 12 or fewer touches, he's had only 41% of the team's running back rush attempts. So, I mean, like, Bucky Irving's been the better running back. He's been more effective, and he's actually starting to get more work. And so just – Rachaad White hasn't been efficient throughout his career, but he used to get volume, and now he's not getting the volume. So not a good matchup either as well. Again, he's a dicey flex to me tonight.
Let's move over to the pass catchers for love-hate, and we're going to start with DK Metcalf. The Giants right now are allowing the 2nd highest catch rate to outside wide receivers, Matthew, and that's a giant red flag here in this one.
1,000%, especially because, by the way, we expect DK Metcalf to be shadowed by Deonte Banks. And that's a positive.
I was going to say, that doesn't ring it doesn't hit the same way it's supposed to hit.
Right, no, exactly. You're like, he's going to be shadowed by Pat Surtain. You're like, that's nervous. No, he's going to be shadowed by Deonte Banks. Deonte Banks has already allowed 4 touchdowns this season. We're in week 5.
Wide just won a game
as well.
Wide receivers that have faced, just give you a quick list of wide receiver 1s that have faced the New York Football Giants this season. Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, they are averaging 18.8 fantasy points per game, the wide receiver 1 that has faced New York so far this season. I have DK Metcalf already up at running back 7. Again, you've talked about this. Geno Smith's passing at a 70% rate. Like, they're throwing a ton, and obviously the JSN versus Tyler Lockett thing, we're still waiting to see how that played out. Jay and I going back and forth on Monday night. But DK Metcalf is clearly the alpha in this pass-first offense.
Yep. Do you think DK Metcalf has another gear as a wide receiver? He's always been in that kind of second tier of guys, like elite, but not in the Jefferson, Tyreek type of range. Do you think in this offense he can go to another level?
I really do, just because, number one, I don't think Geno's ever looked better, honestly.
Yeah.
I know 2 years ago he was great, but in
but I
Ryan
agree.
Grubb's offense, we've talked about this a lot. All the things that made turned Michael Penix into a great prospect, top 10 pick, and played in the national title game, was because of Ryan Grubb's ability to open up an offense and push the ball down the field. Geno Smith has a great NFL arm, and he's doing that now. And who does that affect the most? It's not JSN or Lockett. It's DK Metcalf.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the production's going to skyrocket, or continue to. Jay, yesterday on Keep It Open or Close It Out, we talked a lot about Keenan Allen, and now he has to be a close at this point. DJ Moore makes the love list because, unlike Keenan Allen, DJ Moore's target share is a big positive right now.
Yeah, and I get there's some level of just pessimism and negativity around DJ Moore and the Bears offense overall. DJ Moore hasn't topped 78 receiving yards in a game so far, but he is getting the targets. And I think that just the natural thing that is going to happen here, Connor, is that Caleb Williams is going to get more comfortable. He's going to get better, and that is extremely correlated with DJ Moore getting better at the same time. So I think this is the time now to really buy low on DJ Moore heading into a very favorable matchup against Carolina.
Yes, to your point about that, the Panthers have allowed 5 different touchdowns to perimeter wide receivers. That's tied for most in the NFL. Wide receivers that see at least 6 targets against the Panthers are averaging 17.2 fantasy points per game. DJ Moore, to your point about target share, has at least 6 targets in every single game this year. Keep pounding, Jay.
Keep pounding.
Keep pounding. Keep pounding DJ Moore into your lineups.
Yes.
See what I did there?
As he goes against
the Carolina Panthers. That's right.
Yep.
Yes.
And revenge game.
Yeah. Oh, hashtag revenge game. That's right.
Let's not forget.
That's right. Where is Ron Rivera when you need him? Just stand on the sideline looking confused.
Amari Cooper next up here on the love list for pass catchers. Listen, the Commanders have been an awesome story in the NFL, but
They really have been.
The secondary still has its holes, Matthew, especially against number 1 wide receivers, which Amari Cooper is.
Every wide receiver to face Washington this season has scored at least 1 touchdown. Even in a game last week where they played really well, Marvin Harrison Jr. gets into the end zone. Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors among the other wide receivers that have gotten hit pay dirt against my beloved Commanders. Since he's returned from injury, what I was going to say about Amari Cooper is that 4 of the 5 wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against Washington this year has scored at least 16 fantasy points. This year he's got a 26% target share as well. Given the high-flying Commanders offense, it's crazy to say, but given the high-flying Commanders offense, it's likely Cleveland's going to have to throw Amari Cooper just getting massive target share, his talent. It's not a secondary that you still feel great about despite last week's win against Arizona. So, yeah, I have Amari Cooper as a top 20 play this week.
Yep. Just quickly while we're talking about the Browns, Nick Chubb is 25-1 to win comeback player of the year on DraftKings. The moment he gets on the field and scores a touchdown, that's plus 500 immediately. So go and get that.
And he's a guy that has come back from crazy injury in his life. Would
It's
not
an
be
incredible
shocking.
story.
Yeah.
And he's a Cleveland Brown, and that you sort of give it to the Brown of the remember
It's basically the Brown of the Year.
It's
award.
Brown of the Year award because I don't know if you remember, but last year Joe Flacco
Did he
won
win?
comeback. Yeah, he
Just a handful of
year-
games.
Handful of games.
Yeah.
Handful of games.
Unbelievable.
I will. I don't know if he wanted to make this public, so I won't say his name. I'll tell you off air. But no, I had lunch yesterday with somebody that is a legend in the NFL analysis space. I'll leave it at that. I'll probably be
So not Joe Flacco.
No, not Joe. But anyway, that came up, and he said the fact that DeMar Hamlin didn't win last year was the craziest travesty I've ever seen.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
And yes, I'm sure. My career, he couldn't believe it, and this is somebody that votes on awards, that is household name if you follow the NFL, and so anyway, I was just like, oh, I'll tell Jay.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
Sure.
Brings all that money right back.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Unbelievable.
I
That's
said
right.
don't feel bad for Jay. He won on Nas Reed.
Yeah,
exactly.
Thank you, Nas. But no, it's my comeback story this year.
Yes.
I've talked about it. And my story is Nick Chubb. So let's get it done.
Exactly.
Nick.
Are you going to accept an award like at Bet Bash for comeback better of the year?
Comeback better of the year.
Yeah, comeback gambler. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, just
dear.
like they show up your bank account and then they show this year and just like look at the run he made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Real rags to riches story.
Exactly.
Jake Ferguson, our tight end on the love list here, a 23.7% target share in the 2 games since he's returned from knee injury. Jay, we've talked about just how narrow this passing offense can be. CeeDee Lamb, CeeDee Lamb, CeeDee Lamb, and then Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. It reminds me a little bit of the Eagles last year, where it's just Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. And those are the only three guys. In this, it's even less. It's just CeeDee Lamb or Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson has 18 targets the past 2 weeks. The Cowboys, 2.5-point dogs against the Steelers. I think they're going to be behind in this game. They don't have any defensive players left. And the defense was bad to begin with. So I think it all adds up. Jake Ferguson, the concern was, would he look a bit rusty coming off the knee injury? He looks fine. He looks like just Jake Ferguson again. And that, in this environment, is a top 8 tight end.
I was a top 5 tight end. I'm a tight end 4. To your point, in a, what's the old phrase, right? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Like, Jake Ferguson is an elite fantasy tight end, given how desolate the position has been so far this year. It's actually not a terrible matchup. As good as the Steelers' defense has been, they're one of 5 teams to allow multiple touchdowns to opposing tight ends so far this year. And you mentioned the narrow target tree here. Brandon Cooks has already been ruled out of this game. Brandon Cooks not going to play. So now you're looking at, like, Jalen Tolbert. Like, it's going to be the CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson show on Sunday night, right here on NBC. I'm a company man. Cowboys, Steelers, let's go.
Some other pass catchers receiving votes: T. Higgins, Brian Thomas Jr., who looks like the true number 1 of that Jacksonville offense during his rookie year. Dontayvion Wicks, target monster last week for Jordan Love. Josh Downs returned and had a great week 4. And then Tucker Kraft, who has taken over at tight end, Matthew, for the Packers.
3 straight games with a target share of at least 15%. By the way, worth noting the Rams, they are getting healthier defensively, but still, they allow the highest catch rate to opposing tight ends. So Tucker Kraft, for those of you desperate at tight end, feels like Luke Musgrave is just not going to happen. His teammate Dontayvion Wicks, it is Dontayvion season, SZN. You mentioned this. We've talked about him a lot this week, but 4 end zone targets in week 4. Rams have allowed the second most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this season. Last week, a 80% route participation and 24% target share for Wicks, who will continue to get that kind of work as long as Christian Watson is out. T. Higgins very quietly leads the Bengals, not Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, in the 2 games since Higgins has been back, has almost a 24% target share and leads the Bengals in that category. Worth noting that the Ravens allow the most yards and second most catches on deep passes. He's my wide receiver, 23. And you mentioned BTJ. 3 of 4 games this year, he's had at least a 20% target share. Colts allow the 7th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Other side of the field to him is Josh Downs, who yesterday, Connor, I believe you called him the most talented wide receiver on Indy.
Yeah, I think so. He's just an elite separator. Plays from the slot. It feels like not only Joe Flacco, when he's in there, is so comfortable throwing to him. People forget, last year, the very small sample size we saw of Anthony Richardson, he was the most comfortable throwing to Josh Downs. So, listen, I know people drafted Michael Pittman way further ahead. I think there's a world where Josh Downs has the best game, like per week production in that receiving corps.
Definitely. Just quickly on BTJ. BTJ has a higher yards per route run than CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf. Like, BTJ has already arrived. He's also been screwed. Trevor Lawrence missed him wide open on a touchdown last week, and he also got screwed in week 1 with Jalen Ramsey committing PI in the end zone on him. So he should have 2 extra touchdowns. So BTJ already, I think, is a must-start wide receiver every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Jacksonville's a small market city and they're 0-4, and he doesn't have a cool name. Again, Brian Thomas, we've talked about this. Brian Thomas is like, he's an assistant manager at like Staples or whatever, right? That's what that name is. But it's not a cool. Marvin Harrison Jr., great name, obviously, famous name. Malik Neighbors, great name.
Roma Dunze,
great name. Roma Dunze, great name. Matthew Berry, terrible name. Right?
Ladd McConkey, not a great name, but a memorable one.
No, Ladd McConkey's a good name. I disagree. Ladd McConkey's a great name.
It's just different.
It's different. You just want different and interesting and just something that sounds football-y.
Yes,
Ladd McConkey sounds football-y.
Right, it does sound football-y.
But my point is that because it's a small market team, they're 0-4. It's Jacksonville. It doesn't have like a cool sounding name. What he's done this year has been overshadowed by obviously how great Neighbors has been, and Harrison's had some highlights as well. But I think he's right there. Like we can talk about talent, but like he's right there in terms of like a rookie wide receiver that came into the NFL and made an immediate impact and is an every week no-brainer starter. I don't care who they're playing. He's starting for me.
Yes. I'd love to place a wager on Brian Thomas Jr. to finish 3rd in offensive rookie of the year. I don't think that wager is available on DraftKings, but because I think it's going to be Jane Daniels and Malik Neighbors, 1 and 2. There's a lot of season to go still, but Brian Thomas, he's right there. And I think he's well overperformed expectations, but to your point, no one cares at the moment, but it still counts.
Well,
But we care in our little world.
Let me ask you this then. How far is he in the offensive rookie of the market? Because Jaden Daniels has been amazing, and if you're an amazing rookie quarterback, you're going to win. Malik Neighbors has been incredible, but now is hurt, and that's something that can linger. What is the injury protection wager for Brian Thomas Jr.? Because Jaden Daniels could get banged up and miss time. Malik Neighbors already is going to miss time. Is there any value in that, or his odds are just too short?
I mean, he's 35-1. I think there's a little bit of value there. I mean, he's like almost double the price of Xavier Worthy. Brian Thomas Jr. is much more likely to win that award than Xavier Worthy because of his usage. Also, he's like 6 times the price of Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Like, I think that's too large too. So, look, I think Jaden Daniels is going to win with health, but to your point, that doesn't have to endure. Jaden Daniels also, it's no guarantee he plays this well the rest of the season. Neighbors is the one who just has such a high floor, but again, like he's a health risk too. So
he's probably gonna miss this week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was trying to look up. I was trying to find the tweet because I'm going to misquote it a little bit. But I saw a tweet from Jordan Renan, who covers the Giants for ESPN. He does a great job. Good dude. But he said at this point feels like he's a long shot to play this week. Devin Singletary more 50-50 feels like he has that groin injury. I just randomly, I was like, I wonder if Tyrone Tracy's available in the League of Assholes. He's not. No, he's definitely not. He hasn't been available since, I think, draft day. So, what are you going to do?
If somebody gets talked up once on this show, they are not available in the League of Assholes.
It's awful. Anyway, so.
You can probably get Jalen Hyatt, though.
Who'll have 3 targets, 1 catch for 9 yards.
Yes. Yeah, but that's a heads up, just by the way, that there's a chance you're going to be without Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
I have 25 teams, but I have a ton of Malik Neighbors and Rashee Rice. This is going to be a dicey week for me. It's going to be a very tough week for me.
Brian,
for your old pal Matty, in case you're worried about it. Here's the tweet from Jordan Renan.
While Malik Neighbors' concussion seems like a long shot to be ready for Seattle, running back Devin Singletary dealing with a groin injury told me he has a chance. Wednesday was the best he's felt since the Cowboys game. Big couple of days of practice upcoming to see if he can make it for Sunday. Yeah, I know Brian Dable, when he was asked about Neighbors and concussion protocol, Dable said something along the lines of he's in the very early stages. There are many stages of concussion protocol, so to clear them, it doesn't seem like the time frame lines up with that game.
Especially because, by the way, this game is in Seattle. So they're going to have to, if it were a home game, they could wait all the way up until Sunday. But just basically, it's hard, are you going to put Malik Neighbors in a concussion on a cross-country flight to Seattle on Friday? You're not going to do that.
Not going to do that.
Right? And so that's the other thing about Singletary. We'll see. But, again, if he's got a groin injury, do you want to be on a 6-hour flight from New York to Seattle? You don't. Sitting in a, even though I'm sure they have a beautiful plane and it's, but still, that's just, it's tough. So if there's a positive here, we should likely have clarity on both those guys, whether they make the trip on Friday. We'll have clarity. Of course, these are the kind of things that we'll talk about and update you Sunday morning in Pittsburgh at the Applebee's on Steubenville Pike.
Yes. The hate list for pass catchers, headlined by Tyreek Hill. Yes, Matthew, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 25 this week. He hasn't gone over 40 yards since week 1.
Dude, he's been bad. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. It's his quarterback, right? In the 2 games since Tua Tagovailoa went down, he's got 7 receptions for 63 yards. Total. That's a bad game for him in 1 game, and that's what he's done over 2 games. In those 2 games, he's wide receiver 63. He's averaging 7.6 fantasy points per game. You see it there on your screen, honestly. He had the huge game against the Jaguars in week 1, and it hasn't been great since. Only 1 team has a lower implied team total this week. They're implied, they're in the game against the Patriots where it's a 35.5 over/under as well. I'm at 25, but I mean he's a dicey flex play, which is insane to think about Tyreek Hill. But we just, and hopefully Snoop Huntley gets on more of a page with Tyreek Hill. Maybe their timing's down a little bit better here, but and at least with Hill versus Waddle, feels like they'll do some jet sweeps and they'll do some bubble screens and they'll try to get the ball in his hands. So there's at least some hope there, but it's been bad. It's been bad for a couple weeks now.
Yeah. Connor, do you think that in Mike McDaniel's offense, which seems to be extremely complicated, that just an added week for Tyler Huntley is going to make a difference, a significant difference where Tyreek becomes usable? Now, Tyreek was 2 different plays away from having 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that offense, it looked like a preseason game.
It did. I don't know if another week's going to make that big of a difference. You're basically hoping that one of the 2 times he missed them last week, you hit one this week. That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah. By the way, and there's a chance, which is why he's at running back wide receiver 25, but there's also a chance that he continues what he's done over the past 2 weeks, which is wide receiver 63. It's a tough situation in Miami, and this is a conversation for another show, but just the Dolphins are 1-3. The Dolphins are 1-3. Let's say they lose to the Patriots here. They're 1-4. At what point? Let's say they split the next 2. Just okay. Let's say they're 2-4. At what point do you say, "Hey, Tua, take the year"? Like, you know what I mean? Like when it's the Jets are good, the Bills are good. It's a tough division, and you're also in the AFC with obviously the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Chargers. Like, it's a really tough division. Feels like it's not the Dolphins' year, right? They just lost Jalen Phillips yesterday as well. It's awful.
Yeah, for the season.
Right, for the season. I feel bad for the Dolphins and their fans, obviously, but just feels like it's not their year. And so, this guy's your franchise quarterback. You guys are paying him, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I guess my point, I think there's a very real chance, even if Tua gets cleared, even if he wants to come back, that we don't see Tua again this year because it just won't make football sense to risk him in a season that's lost.
Yep. Their schedules are at New England, bye, at Indianapolis, and then Tua would be eligible to come off IR, I believe, the following week against Arizona. If they're 1-5 going into that Arizona game, then I think it starts to get a little bit, we'll see what happens at that point. But I think if they're 2-4, I think he's probably just going to come back.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, by the way, that schedule doesn't seem terrible. Like, there's a chance they could beat the Patriots. There's a chance they could beat the Colts,
against the Pats.
Yeah. So we'll see how it all plays out. But just something to keep in the back of your mind, I think, as we just talk about the entire Dolphins offense.
Jordan Addison also on the hate list here. He hasn't reached a 20% target share in a game since week 12 of last season, Jay, and that's without T.J. Hawkinson on the field this year right now.
Yep, that's the issue. T.J. Hawkinson looks like he's going to be back as well in the next few weeks, given that he's returning to practice. And the other thing is just that Jalen Naylor has become a thing in this offense. Aaron Jones gets utilized in the passing game. Justin Jefferson isn't even getting 35% target share or anything crazy at the moment. So there just doesn't seem to be, he seems to be the odd man out at the moment in that passing game.
Hasn't gotten a 20% target share in a game since week 12 of last season. Oh, by the way, he plays the Jets. Since the start of last year, no team has allowed fewer touchdowns to opposing wide receivers than your New York Football Jets. So, yeah, he's wide receiver 39 for me this week.
Jakobi Meyers up next here. Denver has allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, Matthew. So while the targets might be good for Jakobi Meyers, it's still going to be really tough to produce.
Devontae Adams is not going to play this week.
Or ever again for the Raiders.
Probably not. And so Jakobi Meyers we talked about this earlier in the show, he's going to get the Pat Surtain treatment. And we've seen much better wide receivers, the DK Metcalfs of the world, that have Garrett Wilsons of the world.
Garrett Wilson.
Right, that have, all due respect to Jakobi Meyers, we've seen players much better than him get shut down by Patrick Surtain. So I'm at wide receiver 32 this week. Like I said, I'd pick up Meyers because I think his value is really going to increase once this Adams trade happens, but not this week.
Kyle Pitts also on the hate list here, Jay. I mean, 6 points per game this season. It's just not happening for Kyle Pitts with a new coaching staff. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, Arthur Smith, all's forgiven.
Yeah, he drank free yesterday, by the way. Can you believe that?
Oh, really? Is that right? He had 0 catches last week. He has 15 targets on the season. He's just doing nothing. That offense just isn't throwing the ball at all either. Their offensive line is banged up. It's just all a bit of a mess at the moment. So they're still 2-2 and favorites to win tonight to go to 3-2. But I just think with Kyle Pitts, you have to see it before you have any confidence starting him. There are probably just tight ends on the waiver wire that you feel better about than Kyle Pitts, like the Hunter Henrys of the world at this point.
He's just not being. It's Ray McLeod, Drake London, and Darnell Mooney. That's the passing offense of the Falcons. By the way, they should be 1-3. They should not have won that game against the Saints.
0-4.
Yeah,
Eagles as well.
Yeah, it's a good point.
We're taking our
we'll
first
talk
break.
About that game later.
When we're back, Love-Hate continues. We got the quarterbacks after the break.
It's my first time playing in SoFi, so I'm excited to go back home, and obviously the closest game back home in Bakersfield, so I have a lot of family and friends there, and we're excited to be able to play in front of them. No, I mean, they got a good defense. I mean, it's something that we are familiar with. The style of defense is, what our defense has ran the past couple of years. And, I feel like we've played them every year, since I've been here, it feels like. So we've seen them a lot. And, we'll go through the week and put a good plan together.
That was Jordan Love talking about being excited of the return home for him. And Matthew, we're excited because he's got a great matchup against the Rams secondary.
Yes, Love makes the love list. Very exciting. I wish there was a player named Hate. Where does he hate me when you need him?
I was just going to say we had one.
Yeah, I know.
His name's Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
Oh,
Man, wow.
nice.
Shots fired. Look, it's a great matchup against the Rams. You mentioned it, Connor. No team allows, they allow touchdown passes, at the second highest rate. One team allows touchdowns at a higher rate than the Rams do. They've also allowed the most touchdowns and the third most yards on deep passes. So Jordan Love, who's third in the NFL in deep ball rate so far this season, looked great in the second half of last week's game. Didn't look great in the first half, but he is, top 3 in terms of percentage of passes thrown, 15 or more air yards down the field. I have Jordan Love at QB4 this week, guys. Should be a big game. Rams secondary is getting a little bit healthier, but still.
Yeah, Jordan Love said they're going up against a good defense. They're not. This is a very bad defense. The two worst defenses by EPA per play, and it's not even close. These two teams exist in their own tier. One, your Washington Commanders, who are 32nd and still 3-1 and second favorite in the NFC East, and then second to the Rams in terms of being the second worst. So there's just nothing here. Like, who's the best player in the secondary, Connor? Is it Cam Curl?
Yeah,
probably
I would say
Cam
yes.
Curl.
I would
Tre'Davious
say Cam
White just
former Commander.
It's been over for, unfortunately, he had a great career, Trey White, but he hasn't been the same guy since his injury. So, but your guy Brock Purdy, he shows up on the hate list in a top 5 play. 49ers
Future MVP?
Yes.
49ers have the highest implied team total for week 5.
That's what happens when you have the future MVP on your team. Look, the third worst defense in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. And I think the key with what Purdy is doing this year, it's completely different to last year, which is strange to see this out of a Shanahan offense, but there's no yak at the moment. There's less yak in this offense than any quarterback has had in the past 20 years. Purdy is throwing it deep a ton. He's had touchdowns called back multiple times. So I just think that his stats, they're not revealing how good he has been to this point. And now he gets an extremely favorable matchup. The team is healthier than it was, say, a couple of weeks ago against the Rams. And this is what I expect is going to be the best offense in football.
By the way, last year he crushed the Cardinals as well. 23.5 fantasy points per game is what he averaged in the 2 games against Arizona. Completed 78% of his passes. Those are almost Jaden Daniels' numbers. 525 yards and 5 touchdowns against 0 interceptions. Feels like this is the week where they all sort of, they've had Kittle back now. They've Debo back, right? Ayuk getting up to speed. Juwan Jennings is emerging. Jordan Mason has cemented his role. This feels like this is a big 49ers week, feels like.
Yep.
Anyway, he's my QB5, Purdy.
Joe Burrow also on the love list. We talked earlier how the Ravens have the best run defense in the NFL. They have one of the worst pass defenses.
Yeah, they're more of a pass funnel defense at this point. They're 29th in pass defense compared with just first in run defense for the season as well. It's an over-under of 51. So we expect a lot of points on both sides of the ball here. 3 of the 4 quarterbacks that have faced the Ravens so far this year have thrown for at least 275 yards. Now, of course, the one that didn't was Josh Allen, who I gave the over on his passing prop on Football Night in America. So it's nice.
Again,
the one guy that didn't do it. No one watches that show. No one saw me lose that bet.
Got me cutting guillotine.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It was his worst start as an NFL starter, 7.5 fantasy points.
To be fair, that's on Keon Coleman.
Thank you, exactly. Catch that ball, Keon Coleman, and I think it's a different game, at least for fantasy and betting purposes. I think they still would have lost the game, but
Joe Brady pressing the trick play button at the most random time ever.
They're rolling.
Nobody's going to know what we do if we pitch the ball to Josh Allen.
Awful. Anyway, Joe Burrow is my QB7.
All right, some others receiving votes. Justin Fields on the love list this week, and Geno Smith, who is just throwing the hell out of the ball in Ryan Grubb's offense. Both these guys, Matthew, top 10 plays. For sure. You mentioned Geno Smith. No quarterback has more pass attempts than Geno. Their pass rate, they're first in the NFL in pass rate over expected so far this year. So we've talked about Giants having to travel west across the country. They're bottom 10 in both touchdown rate and passer rating against. And then Justin Fields now has back-to-back games with a rushing touchdown. He's got 5 goal-to-go rushes over that stretch. Cordell Patterson banged up, Jaylen Warren banged up. And it's worth noting that the Cowboys, Justin Fields is at home as a home favorite. The Cowboys are bottom 5 in terms of most rushing yards and most rushing touchdowns allowed to opposing quarterbacks.
really feels like the Steelers, and again, I give a lot of credit to Arthur Smith because I killed them all last year. So if you're gonna knock somebody, you got to give them credit where credit is due. And they have Arthur Smith and his staff have done a great job with Justin Fields. No longer 5-step drop and I'm gonna just chuck it, or I'm gonna, if my first read isn't there, I'm just running. Yep. Like, he's playing within that offense, and they're using his legs smartly, and they're using the passing attack smartly, and they'll take a couple of deep shots, but it's not all just chucking it deep. Feels like to me.
Thought it was impressive the way that he was able to get them back against the Colts, because it did feel like down 2 scores, can't be running the ball. It felt like Fields dropping back all the time, and they know that he has to throw. But he was able to work through it. Now, I understand the Colts don't have a great defense, but neither do the Cowboys. The Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence on IR, Micah Parsons with the high ankle sprain, Deron Bland's been out. So it's not a great defense. It's the 24th ranked defense so far. That has mainly been the issues against the run. But Justin Fields, I think this isn't a scary Cowboys defense at the moment.
On Keep It Open, Close It Out, we closed it out on Patrick Mahomes. He's on the hate list, and we said this, under 17 fantasy points in every game so far. Now 9 straight games dating back to last season, Matthew.
Outside my top 12, I currently have him at QB 14. You mentioned the under 17 fantasy points in every game so far. It's actually been 9 straight dating back to last season. Not a good matchup against the Saints, right? New Orleans has allowed 1 passing touchdown in 4 games this season. They've allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And we did this exercise yesterday. And I put a little bit of this into love-hate as well. But, he has been, the last time Patrick Mahomes finished as a top 5 quarterback in weekly scoring came in week 7 of last year. Over the last 15 weeks, Patrick Mahomes has won, count him, 1 game in the last 15 games dating back to last year where he had a weekly finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. 1. That's the same number as Desmond Ridder. Over that same frame, that's the same number as Tommy DeVito. It's 4 less than Jake Browning. You know what I mean?
Tyrod Taylor has 2.
Tyrod Taylor has 2. Joe Flacco has 4.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, but I'm just... The point is it has been a long time since Patrick Mahomes has actually been a QB1 in fantasy, and without first game without Rashee Rice in a tough matchup, hard to see him getting back there. Outside my top 10, outside my top 12, on the hate list this week.
Dak Prescott also on this list, Jay. The Steelers ranked top 8 in pressure rate this season. Dak is not as mobile as he once was, unfortunately.
I think there's 2 things with Dak. So Dak's entire career, he's struggled under pressure, except for last year when he was amazing under pressure. And to me, that was always a little bit fluky. I think Dak is like the 9th to 13th best quarterback in the NFL. And I think he ran hot last year and became a top 4 guy for a season. And now he gets this Pittsburgh team. We saw TJ Watt teeing off against Kirk Cousins back in week 1, where he looked like the best player in football. I think he's going to do the same thing again on Sunday night. The other thing with the Cowboys, Connor, is that Guyton and Beebe, rookie left tackle and center, those guys have really struggled. And I think that is really hurting the offense.
They really have. Guyton was very raw coming out. He played right tackle at Oklahoma. He was once upon a time an H-back at TCU. He's very talented, but his hands are all over the place. A lot of penalties. It's costing Dak, as you said, Jay.
And he's my QB 15 this week. So ideally you have somebody better. But you know what time it is, boys?
I think I do.
It's time to choose your lineup. That's what it is. And it's time to choose your lineup. Brought to you by our friends at Jameson. Join our unofficial call to try to get pro football to Dublin. Visit jamesonsports.com for more. And here's a quarterback and 3 flex plays that can help you with your Week 5 matchup as well. Trevor Lawrence, by the way, right? I'm a QB 13. Colts have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Indy is 26th in pass defense this year. The Jaguars' defense is bad. Trevor should be throwing. He looked better last week. I think he's a viable low-end QB1, high-end QB2. How about Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns going against my beloved Commanders? Washington, for all their success, they have trouble stopping running backs. They're giving up 5.4 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's the most in the NFL. By the way, Jerome Ford quietly has 81% of the Browns' running back touches over the past 2 weeks on the road against Washington, trying to slow down Jaden Daniels, that high-flying offense. Expect a heavy workload for the Cleveland backs, starting with Jerome Ford. He's my running back 21 this week. At wide receiver, how about Tutu Atwell? He's playing the Packers as well. I'm at wide receiver 35, but quietly in the past 2 games, each of the past 2 games, Tutu Atwell has at least 80 receiving yards. He has a 21% target share, and it's worth noting that the Pack allow 14.6 yards per reception to wide receivers. That's 4th highest in the NFL, guys. We know that you heard earlier in the show how much I like Jordan Love. This game has sneaky shootout potential. Tutu Atwell is going to be part of that passing attack as Stafford tries to keep up with Green Bay. And then finally at tight end, Cade Otton. He's on the road at Atlanta tonight. If you're desperate for a tight end, take a look at Cade Otton. Not in my league because Connor picked him up 2 days ago. Screw Connor. But the fact of the matter is that over the last 2 weeks, Cade Otton has almost a 22% target share. He's averaging double-digit fantasy points, and it's a good matchup against the Falcons, who are top 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. So given the desert that is fantasy tight end production, Cade Otton potentially a thing. By the way, Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer not expected to play for the Bucs tonight. We'll talk about more about that on the other side of this break when we come back. That's right. Look at me throwing a break.
Unbelievable.
What do we got next?
Connor Rogers?
What do we have next?
Oh, we're last call. Last call is
Best
next,
bets
Connor.
for Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, as part of last call. I got that right. Screw you.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It's time for last call. Let's take a look at the most bet props for Thursday Night Football on DraftKings. Chris Godwin receiving yards 50 plus minus 275. Bijan Robinson receiving yards 25 plus is minus 130. Bucky Irving rushing yards 40 plus is minus 155.
Everyone
Bijan
loves
Robinson
Bucky Irving.
receiving yards over 25.5. Rachaad White rushing yards 60 plus at plus 380. That's an alt line. Jay, what do you like in this game?
Like Kirk Cousins over 229.5 passing yards. He's gone over 3 straight. I think this line is baking in a bit that the Bucs so far this season have really struggled against the run and conversely been really good against the pass. I think that's just noisy because they had to play Saquon Barkley, they had to play the Detroit Lions, they had to play the Washington Commanders week 1, apparently the greatest offense in NFL history. I think Cousins will be throwing. Last year, they really struggled against the pass. Antoine Winfield out as well really hurts.
What about you, Matthew?
I'm going Sterling Shepard over 19.5 receiving
Throwback
yards.
Thursday.
That's right. Yeah, it's a Throwback Thursday, exactly. How many of you out there knew Sterling Shepard was on the Buccaneers?
In the NFL.
Well, he is, and his line is 19.5 receiving yards. He had 51 quietly last week. No Trey Palmer, no Jalen McMillan. He's going to be the third wide receiver. We expect A.J. Terrell to be on Mike Evans, so maybe a few more looks to Sterling Shepard's way as well. 19.5, he can get there. Give me the over.
I'm on the Bucs pass catchers as well. Cade Otton over 29.5 receiving yards. He's got 17 targets in his last 2 games.
Yeah,
Baker likes Cade Otton.
He does like Cade Otton. There you go. So there's your bet. All right, good.
Yeah, how do you like that little parlay?
Put that together as a parlay.
Sterling Shepard.
He's
real and he's spectacular.
I just need 20 yards out of him. Hey, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew. Go read Love, Hate, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Much love. Can't wait to see you in Pittsburgh on Sunday. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.